So your school has asked you to teach a total beginner about the IELTS exam. Where on earth would you start? Well, that's what I want to talk to you about today. My name's Phil, so welcome to this channel. If you're joining me for the first time, why not subscribe? And if you've got any questions at all, don't forget to leave me a comment. Okay, so in theory, absolutely anyone can take the IELTS exam because you're graded from band score 0, which is pretty much you didn't turn up to the exam, up to band score 9, which is the equivalent of a native speaker. Indistinguishable from a native speaker, we should say. But how would you go about doing that? Well, to be honest with you, if you had a total beginner, I don't know how useful it would be to teach them about the IELTS. I certainly wouldn't use IELTS material from the get-go. However, you can definitely set them up by teaching them the skills that they need. You could base your syllabus around those skills, and then later on, once they built up their general English skills, the general English level, you could then start using the IELTS material. So let's talk about exactly what you would do, how you would tackle that, based on each of the 4 skills that they need for English. So in the reading test, in the IELTS, they have to read 3 texts, and they're only given 1 hour to do that, and they're 40 questions. So if they read every single word or they read slowly, they're not likely to get a very good score. So a total beginner, a false beginner, to be honest, they're not going to find it very easy to do this, especially because they're academic tests, at least for the academic IELTS test. So what I would say is really focus on the skills they need, using lower level material best suited for a beginner. So the skills that they need to develop are skimming and scanning for information. So teaching them how to look at the questions and to use them to find the keywords that you need to look for in order to get to the right place in the text as quickly as possible. That is a real skill that many better students, higher level students, don't even have. So you could make this an element of your teaching style, of the syllabus that you're going through for these beginners. Another really useful skill for any English learner is understanding new words through context. This is obviously not possible for every single word in the English language, but teaching them how to look at sentences to try and understand whether words have negative or positive connotations, and recognizing how different word forms of the same base word, that can help them with context as well. So really practicing this, getting that into their mind, will help them later on when they take the IELTS test. And the other big skill that they need to learn is about distractors. So the IELTS test is a test that any level student can take. So they have these distractors to try and confuse, mislead lower level students, and really to separate those higher level band 8, band 9 students. So teaching them this early on is a great skill for them to learn. That way they're not going to be fooled by tricky words and just the format of the question. So I would say for your reading, these are the 3 things that you should try and include in your teaching. When it comes to listening, one of the things that you can teach even beginners is how to predict answers. Obviously, with their knowledge of vocabulary and grammar, they may not be able to do this for more complex questions. But things like in the first recording, it's always going to be a transactional conversation. Normally, there's things like phone numbers and names that are exchanged. So you can, even that sort of question, you can help them think, okay, well, if it's asking for someone's name, it's more likely to be the person booking the hotel than the hotel manager who's going to give that information. So even this will help them predict answers later on when they take the IELTS. Another big thing that I found is spelling. Teaching them how to spell words correctly is an essential skill for listening and also for writing later on. If you can get them into the habit of learning spelling, practicing spelling difficult words, that's really going to help them too. And I think the final thing I would concentrate on for listening is how to navigate conversations. What I mean by that is within the listening paper, there are 4 different types of conversations, 2 dialogues and 2 monologues. And each type of recording needs different skills to make sure that they're in the right place, they haven't skipped an answer. So especially for things like monologues for the 4th recording, using sequencing language to help you navigate the conversation, to know when one topic is ending and another one's beginning. If you can start teaching them this very early on, it's really going to help them as well. For writing, well, we all know this is the most difficult skill for many students in any language. I certainly know for me, for my second language, which is actually French, I find this very difficult. So teaching your beginners even just basic sentence structure, subject, verb, object, just getting this very clear in their minds, especially if they are from a language background that has a different sentence structure to English. That's really going to help them early on. And also kind of getting them to start producing error-free, simple grammatical structures. Even for a lower level student, if they can do this, they can walk out with maybe a band score 5 if they can do this consistently. In addition to the ability to write sentences, you can start teaching them about the structure that they need, essay structures for the IELTS, the right structure for a task 1 to describe data, especially how we describe data like from a pie chart, because there are only certain ways that we can do this in English, right? And many of my students, especially here from a Chinese background, Chinese language background, I should say, they really struggle with, they always get this reversed. So that was one of the first things I had to teach every single student that came through my classes. And of course, with writing, spelling is really important because if they don't spell words correctly, that will count against them. For speaking, if I was teaching a beginner, I'd like to get them into a good habit of pronunciation, because pronunciation is one of the things that students can improve the quickest. And if you teach them how to improve their pronunciation, i.e. by mimicking a TV series, by model and drilling pronunciation, if you get them into these good habits early on, then they can make up for a lack of vocabulary knowledge, a lack of grammatical knowledge, and they can really show the examiner that they can speak English well, they can be understood even if they're making mistakes. And they could still get a fairly good band score if they did that, even with lots of grammatical and vocabulary mistakes. The other thing that a lot of students, even high level students, seem to have problems with is developing basic ideas and extending them, making them link together. So if you practice with your students how to express themselves in concise but clear ways, even at a low level, they can take these skills and build on them for the future, and it's going to really help them. So, as I said before, if I was teaching a beginner class, I certainly wouldn't bombard them with IELTS style material, because I think it's just going to put them off. But you can certainly take all the skills that they need for the IELTS and apply them to material that's the right level for that student. And by learning all that, they're going to do much better in the IELTS test later on when they've built up their level. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel so far, why not do that now? And also, if you've got any comments, any suggestions for other viewers, let's all learn together and share our ideas. That way we all become better teachers. I will see you in the next video. See you then.